It's frustrating as a creator to not have the budget to bring to life all of your wonderful ideas. It can be tempting to cheap out with your ideas and try them on a smaller budget. This is okay if you actually sit down and come up with a creative way to show it, but if your plan is to grit your teeth and hope the audience will sit through it, then you have another thing coming your way. Hello and welcome to my channel. Here I review new movies and television shows and try to release a new review every day from Monday to Friday. Today I'm going over the film Andromeda. It's written and directed by Brett Bentman and stars Tim Llewellyn, Tiffany McDonald, and Paul T. Taylor. It wants to be a drama with science fiction and action elements to it, but in reality, it's a mess that didn't have the budget to do what it wanted. The film has good ideas that are executed poorly, actors that are trying their hardest to make diamonds from coal, and a lot of poor decision making. Aiden Crawford is asked to a meeting with a government agency. The agents tell him that Aiden's father was working on a new technology that would allow humans to travel to the farthest reaches of space. He went missing while using that technology, and now the agency believes Aiden is their best shot at finding him. Will he be able to find his father? The film is really hard to take seriously with how visibly poor the budget is. The government building doesn't look or feel real. The technology is a VR headset, and the CGI work looks like video game graphics from the early 2000s. The atmosphere just isn't there, and it makes the serious tones of the movie come off as corny. The story itself has good ideas buried within it, but also has a lot of random noise. The therapist storyline gives good insight into Aiden's psyche, but it doesn't really add anything to the film, and instead makes him appear unhinged. Those scenes, while well acted, are slow and dialogue heavy. The main storyline about the state of the planet, the technology that Aiden's father built, and finding out what happened to Will Crawford is an interesting concept, but the film doesn't flesh it out enough, and mixing it up with the therapy parts and the bathtub scenes killed the tension. The dialogue is exposition overloaded, and yet doesn't actually explain how the technology works. The scene explaining how the technology worked left me confused, and it took seeing it in action several times before I got the gist of what was happening. There's a lot of world building and lore that doesn't go anywhere, or have a payoff, and the film rushes through quite a bit of the main storyline. There are a lot of unanswered questions, and a few holes in the story. The most egregious mistake is in how they did the battle sequence. The action on screen is just incomprehensible. The cast does what they can, and each of them manages to put on a decent performance, but it's kind of like trying to climb Mount Everest with no legs. Paul T. Taylor and Tom Zembrod do manage some impressive scenes and are the standouts of the film. Tom Zembrod plays Joseph Sharp, an overworked and past his prime agent that does what he's told but resents the way the system works. He does well with the lengthy exposition dumps and manages to put a good amount of energy and emotion into them. He embodies the emotions of the character and nails the vibe. Paul T. Taylor doesn't get a lot of screen time, but manages to perform his role wonderfully. He gets one scene with Tim Llewellyn, in which he gets to have a heartfelt conversation with his son and explain a few things. His expressions are fantastic, and you can see the love he has for his boy. The soundtrack is fairly well done, but it's used quite sparsely. The tracks are boilerplate tracks, but they're well chosen to suit the scenery. The audio recording, on the other hand, is quite poorly done. The dialogue often sounds like it's canned and far away, and there are a few sound effects that sound outright ridiculous. The gun noise that the blaster makes is a really great example of this. If Andromeda had been done with a bigger budget by a studio with a bit more experience under its belt, they would have tightened up the script, made the atmosphere match the tone, and worked on the CGI a bit. As it stands, Andromeda is a cheesy, sloppy movie that doesn't really make sense. 4 out of 10.